So this video is entitled Empathy. The story of abuse is not uncommon. It prevails in society like a virus and leaves destruction, fear, and sadness in its wake. Given its prevalence, it is likely that you will know someone who is going through it and may need your support. You will need to develop the skill of empathy. Empathy involves understanding the other person's situation from their perspective. You may say that it allows you to walk in their shoes. According to Dr. Brene Brown, research professor of the University of Houston, who spent the last 16 years researching it, empathy moves us to a place of courage and compassion. Through it, we come to realize that our perspective is not the only perspective.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, "I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed." And then we look and we say, "Hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone." Sympathy is, "Ooh, it's bad, no. You want a sandwich?" Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with "at least." Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, "I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me." Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
Domestic abuse survivors are more accustomed to hearing that their pain is not real, that it's unwarranted, unjustified, and unnecessary, so feeling it is deemed ridiculous. However, when another person stands with them in their experience of an old or new injury, they can walk through it. It all starts with attention. When someone is seen or heard by another, they can be more honest with themselves, and this attention could possibly lead to the healing process. All too often, domestic abuse survivors endure years of frustration and bottled up pain. Their experience falls on deaf ears. with the person from whom they seek the attention, the abuser. There can be repeated failed attempts to share their emotional wounds, leaving their loneliness and injury intact. Transformation through connection. As an advocate, you have the power to help and bring about transformation through empathy. It is a learned skill, and therefore, the more we practice and engage with it, the stronger our ability in this area becomes. It is something that can be nurtured throughout life. Julian Treasure claims that we're losing our hearing, and he has a point. With personal broadcasting replacing the art of conversation and silence becoming a scarce resource, we have forgotten how to listen. It's time to focus again and practice the skill of mindful listening. Not just because we owe our full attention to others when we converse, but the positive emotion of a truly good conversation have the potential to make us happy. Active listening increases well-being. The need for connectivity and belonging is fundamental in humans, not only when we're born, but also in adult life. We want to be liked in order to belong. And research has found that we even mimic others with words and gestures to show them that we're just like them. In accordance with this, positive psychology research have left no doubt that positive social interactions increase our subjective well-being and provide greater life satisfaction. One researcher claims nursing social relationships can be one of the 10 happiest enhancing activities due to the sense of belonging we experience when being with others. In addition, spending time with friends or colleagues builds positive emotions, a key component to happiness. This shows us that social relationships are vital for a happy and fulfilling life. And a vital element of positive social interaction is a good conversation. So we're going to go over 6 key active listening skills. Number 1, pay attention. One goal of active listening is to set a comfortable tone that gives the survivor an opportunity to speak. Allow wait time before responding. Don't cut them off. Finish their sentences or start formulating your answer before they've finished. Pay attention to your body language as well as your frame of mind. Be focused on the moment and operate from a place of respect. Number 2, withhold judgment. Active listening requires an open mind. As a listener and an advocate, be open to new ideas, new perspectives, and new possibilities. Even when good listeners have strong views, they suspend judgment, hold any criticism, and avoid arguing or selling their point right away. Don't assume anything that you understand. Don't assume that you understand the survivor correctly or that they know you've heard them. Mirror their information and emotions by periodically rephrasing key points. Reflecting is a way to indicate that you and your counterpart are on the same page. Clarify. Don't be shy. Ask questions about any issue that is ambiguous or unclear. If you have doubt or confusion about what the survivor has said, say something like, "Let me see if I'm clear," or "Are you talking about?" or "Wait a minute, I didn't follow you." Open-ended clarifying and probing questions are important tools that encourage them to do the work of self-reflection and problem solving rather than justifying or defending a position or trying to guess the right answer. Examples include, "What do you think about?" or "Tell me about." The emphasis is on asking rather than telling. It invites a thoughtful response and maintains a spirit of collaboration. Number 5, summarize. Restating key themes as the conversation proceeds confirms and solidifies your grasp of the other person's point of view. It also helps both parties to be clear on follow up. Briefly summarize what you've understood as you listen and ask the other person to do the same. Number 6, share. Active listening is first about understanding the other person, then being understood. As you gain clear understanding of the other person's perspective, you can begin to introduce your ideas, feelings, and suggestions. You might talk about a similar experience you had, share an idea that was triggered by a comment made previously in the conversation. As the advocate, continue to guide and offer, but we don't dictate a solution. The survivor will feel more empowered and eager if they think through the options and own the solution. One thing to keep in mind is that the survivor is they're the expert on their life and not us. So let me leave you with this poem. When I ask you to listen to me and you start giving me advice, you have not done what I ask. When I ask you to listen to me and you begin to tell me why I shouldn't feel that way, you're trampling on my feelings. When I ask you to listen to me and you feel you have something, you have to do something to solve my problems, you have failed me, as strange as that may seem. Listen. All I ask is that you listen, not talk, nor do. Just hear me. I can do for myself. I'm not helpless. Maybe discouraged and faltering, but not helpless. When you do something for me that I can and need to do for myself, you contribute to my fear and weakness. But when you accept as a simple fact that I do feel what I feel, no matter how irrational, then I quit trying to convince you and can get about the business of understanding what's behind this irrational feeling. When that's clear, the answers are obvious, and I don't need advice. Irrational feelings make sense when we understand what's behind them. Perhaps that's why prayer works sometimes for some people, because God is mute. He doesn't give advice to try and fix things. He just listens and lets you work it out for yourself. So please listen and just hear me. If you want to talk, wait a minute for your turn, and then I'll listen. Empathetic listening is hard to do. It means getting over ourselves, our needs, our opinions, and essentially our attachment to I. So here are some tips that have helped me. Create a safe place for the person who needs to talk. Pay attention to body language. Use attentive posture, comfortable eye contact and gestures, expressions and intensity that matches the speakers. Use thoughtful, open-ended, empathetic questions to invite deeper thought and consideration. What were you feeling when that happened? Remind yourself that respectful, empathetic listening is a gift you may give. It doesn't mean I agree with you. And when the speaker pauses, you can briefly summarize what you heard in your own words without solutions. This is the hardest part. When you need to say something, interject. Don't interrupt. So, if you're framing a response when the other person is speaking, remember you're not listening. So that's our training, or a brief overview of our training on empathy and active listening. If you have any questions, if you want to talk, don't be afraid to reach out. I'm always here to help. Thank you.